All right. We are live. Bro, you know what I love? I love that these late streams, we have people like this. Like this. This person left this comment at 2:39 p.m. today, my time. I don't know what time it is for them, but right now it's 7:30 my time. So thank you guys for coming in here and commenting early. I absolutely love it. Look at this. This guy said sleeping in Sicily like 4 hours ago. I love it, dude. I love it. I love it. Welcome in, everybody. Welcome. You guys know the drill. We're just waiting for everybody to kind of get in here and get settled before we get started. I'm going to retweet my live stream, and then we will start discussing what's going on. How is everybody doing today? I hope you're doing good. We just wait for everybody to sort of get in here. We don't start right away. We give it a little, give it a few minutes. Storm Shadow range is 560 kilometers. Export variants are restricted, though. Yeah. So what you're seeing on the thumbnail, that is the range of the missiles that Ukraine has in its inventory. So. Where the air defense in Maryino look like they all got through. Well, if you look at the map, which we can do here, let's go up to the Kursk region. If you look at the map here, before we get into this, that village that you're talking about, where the strike was conducted today, Maryino right here, this is where the strike happened, is very, very, very close to the front line, right? You're talking, I think, 32 kilometers, something like that. 20 miles, so 32 kilometers. That's very, very close to the front. That is within striking range of most artillery. So this is not a place that has that is like, it's not even like relatively that safe. This area has been hit before with HIMARS rounds, so this is not a new target either way. And air defense is not going to be positioned in this area to defend this tiny little area right here that's not a high-value target. I mean, there might have been a command center or something, or a troop concentration, which I don't think it was a troop concentration. We'll talk about it all a little bit later. But you have this area, 32 kilometers from the front, and there's nothing here. I mean, if you were talking about the nuclear power plant taking these hits, maybe, but even then you're talking about a low angle cruise missile attack from just right on the front line. So it's very hard to actually run air defense in any meaningful way that close to the front, right? If this strike was 100 kilometers deeper in depth, that you would have seen a lot more interceptions and a lot less success rate. I love you, Scott. No Diddy. I love you too, Tyrone. No Diddy. All right, guys. Well, let's get into it. Welcome in. This is episode 117 of Kalibrated Live with Scott. I am Scott, of course. Today's episode is titled First Strikes. If any of you follow the Ukraine war, you will know all that is going on because it's all that is being talked about right now. But for those of you who maybe are not in the know and are here for that exact reason, Ukraine has been given the green light by the Biden administration to go ahead and use Western strike weapons such as ATACMS, Storm Shadow, Scalp, cruise missiles, ATACMS, ballistic missile, Storm Shadow, and Scalp cruise missiles on targets inside of Russia proper. This is the first real red line that the West and the Ukrainians have crossed in Ukraine, well, technically in Russia, but with Russia, and is setting up a very, very bad situation for the Ukrainians where they are going to be pigeonholed into the ending that I think, me personally, I've been arguing against the ending that I think we're going to see, even though I think it's the most likely outcome. I want to see a Ukrainian state that is healthy and functioning, with a government that actually cares about its people and its people being taken care of by said government. That is not the situation we have right now, and it doesn't look like that situation is going to change at all. So we will get into all of that today. If you guys would like to support my work, first off, whether you're supporting me financially or not, you are supporting me. If you give this video a like, if you leave a comment, if you share it, if you do anything of the sort, if you're just here listening, you are supporting me. So I thank you all so much for that. If you do wish to support me financially, for all of the work that I put in here and the free content that I put onto Patreon, you can go over to my Patreon. Those links are in the description, where you will find 2 new videos that I have posted in the last week on that Patreon. I'm going to be putting all of my interviews over there for the most part, unless it's a bigger interview like Brian Berletic. I'll still do live streams and stuff like that. But smaller interviews, bro chats, conversations I have, those are on the Patreon. You are able to access all of those for free. And if you find it in your heart to support me, I do appreciate that greatly. Also follow me on my Telegram and my Twitters. Those can also be found in the description of this video on YouTube. All right, guys. Thank you for listening to my little rant. And we will go ahead and get into it. Excuse me for a second. I have to set up my map again. I just have to reload it because it's not in the position that I want it. Okay. All right. Almost done. Okay. There we go. All right. Here we go. We have quite a few updates to talk about today. So first and foremost, let's talk about the Ukrainian strikes utilizing both ATACMS and Storm Shadow cruise missiles. Oh, and by the way, if you guys have questions that you want to ask, you can always do that through Super Chats, through YouTube. I will always answer those, put them up on the screen, get your questions answered live on air. If you do have questions that you just want to throw up in the chat, I will get over to them and look at it every now and then, but I can't do it as well when I'm looking at the map. Okay. So the first strike we've had, and let me just put this all in a sort of a time frame for you. So on Saturday, was a late Saturday, early Sunday, I can't remember, the Biden administration gave, or I'm sorry, Monday, the Biden administration gave the Kiev regime the ability to use ATACMS inside of the regions where they are fighting on the Russian border. So I think the primary area is Kursk and Belgorod. However, the first ATACMS strike we saw was in the Bryansk region right here. There is a claim that they struck a ammunition depot. We saw a video of an explosion. I haven't been able to actually date that, and I've seen claims that actually came from a previous strike on a separate munitions factory or a munitions depot. So I'm just waiting for satellite pictures. I'm sure they will appear very soon of that strike, and we'll get a better idea of what the damage is, if there's damage, where it happened, because I don't even really know where the strike occurred. The second strike we saw came today, and this strike was carried out by Storm Shadow cruise missiles. And this strike occurred in the Kursk region. So within the first 48 hours, we have 2 uses of Western strike systems on Russian soil. This was a clear red line. It goes directly against Russian nuclear doctrine. They've changed their nuclear doctrine actually multiple times, just adjusting it for the changing context of this conflict. And now the Russians can respond with nuclear means if they so wish legally. Now, when you say that a red line is crossed, I want you guys to be very careful, because I just made a tweet about it. Basically, it was if Putin doesn't nuke somebody right now, he's going to look soft. And just think about like that statement for a little bit. Think about the existential threat to to Russia itself, to Putin's regime, to the overall situation by overreacting and going out of your way to respond in sort of an emotional, I would almost say Western manner to events that are still unfolding, where you can still affect those events that are unfolding, right? So I've been dealing with this in my chat on my Telegram now for a while. Apparently, Putin is super weak because within the first 48 hours of this red line being crossed, he didn't immediately do something so stupid and so in favor of the West in this situation. Yeah, he's weak. He's ineffectual. He's a cuck, this, that, and the other. I'm getting tired of hearing that. It's just hyper unrealistic for the reality of the situation. Yeah, I think we will see a response. I think that the Russians are very, very keen on responding. I think they're going to make it very visible. I think they're going to take a lot of credit for it. But the Russians are winning the war. 100 ATACMS landing somewhere in Ukraine. They fired 6 in that first salvo, so they're already 6 down from what they originally had. And the 12 Storm Shadow missiles that they used, the Ukraine does not have unlimited missiles. They have very limited missiles, in fact. So this doesn't change the equation of the war. It's not going to become a really existential threat for Russia. It is a red line being crossed, and it will have an effect on the war. But to say that Putin should do something absurd like, strike a NATO something or another, or, level Kiev or something like this, it's just so stupid. He's winning. Why play into your opponent's hands when you're winning in the way that you are, right? Right now, it's very clear why the Biden administration is going through with this, and we're going to talk about this decision here in a little bit. But I was going to just show you guys exactly how the attack occurred. So, unknown aircraft, potentially Su-24s, F-16s. I'm not sure. Flew somewhere in this region, approached firing lines at low altitude. Fired their missiles at the small village of Maryino right here. Maryino, I don't know how to say it exactly. And we had a video on the ground over here somewhere of the missiles landing on this facility. So this right here is like a sanatorium. That's what they call it. I don't know if it's like an insane asylum sort of deal, like, padded walls. I'm not quite sure. Looks very beautiful. Looks like the kind of place that some Russian leadership might set up a command post. So I'm not doubting that claim by the Ukrainians. They also claimed that there was North Korean leadership here. Again, zero evidence of North Koreans anywhere. In fact, I'm starting to think that the whole thing is fake, and it was just the means to allow this escalation by the West because they're in desperation mode. We've heard actually since the election happened and since everybody kind of figured out what's happening and, decisions aren't going to affect the election anymore. Biden has come out and given the okay on multiple different things that were not previously being allowed to be sent, such as landmines, anti-personnel mines, landmines like that. And then also the green light for ATACMS and stuff like this. So we got a lot. Sanatorium equals Soviet health resort. Sure. I don't know. That's just what the translation said. So those two escalatory measures, I guess, have been okayed by the Biden administration. And what they did is they struck these buildings right here. Predominantly, I think it was like one of the shed buildings, like this one was hit, I think. But the damage seemed very insignificant. There was no calls for blood donations, no ambulances, no videos coming out. They might have kept it hush hush. I'm not sure, but to me, it kind of looks like an ineffectual strike, which is what we kind of expected. The Russians have moved anything worth striking out of range long ago, out of HIMARS range, which this is in HIMARS range, and out of Storm Shadow and ATACMS range for the most part. Any large gatherings, stuff like that, has pretty much been dealt with. The Russians have kind of learned their lessons and figured that out. So these strikes, while obviously over the red line, is just the toe, and the Russians are going to send a very clear message to the Ukrainians about what they're doing. with these strike systems, but I think it will be contained to Ukraine itself. It will not impact NATO. It does not need to. As I've said, the Russians are winning the war from their perspective, nothing needs to change right now. Anything changing is detracting from their overall objectives and goals. The West needs something to change. So trying to elicit a massive response by the Russians is exactly what the goal is here. I think you can very clearly see that in sort of the information warfare that the West is putting on right now. Following this green light, the US, Italian, Spanish, Greek, a bunch of different embassies basically shut down for the day in expectation of a massive Russian missile strike. Again, just nonsense. Never happened. Nothing like that happens. It hasn't happened the entire war. And what sense does it make for the Russians to strike any embassy? It doesn't make any sense. It's this like victim mentality thing where they just try to turn it into propaganda. It's ridiculous, but everybody falls for it. And so the Ukrainian information space now is running on this weird high that this is somehow going to change the battlefield. They've been asking for this for months. And again, you're just going to watch everybody get excited for 2 to 4 weeks. You're going to see some explosions inside of Russia. And then the same thing that has happened time and time again is going to happen once again, where they run out of missiles, Russian air defense gets beefed up, and the response to said actions is so detrimental to the Ukrainian war effort, Ukrainian economy, Ukrainian domestic situation, that they eventually just slow down or stop. We saw that with the drone strikes on Russian refineries. Haven't seen one of those in a very, very long time. I wonder why. Same with HIMARS strikes, same with everything. It just takes time to learn, and once you learn and get it down, you can prevent it. All right, got some questions here. If peace talks happen, how do you think Zelensky plus Putin meeting will be like? I don't think they're going to happen. So I don't think you ever have to worry about that. And I don't think there will ever be a Putin-Zelensky meeting unless it's a surrender of some kind. Again, I don't think Zelensky survives the surrender politically. So by the time that happens, he's likely going to be long gone. I don't think you will ever see these two people in the same room ever again. If they ever were, I don't know if they were before this. Actually, I don't know if I've seen a picture of them together. How long can the AFU realistically hold out in Kursk? How long can this pocket be logistically supported? They seem intent on doubling down. Yes, they are very intent. I don't know. Honestly, it depends on how much they're willing to sacrifice, how hard the Russians are willing to push to get them out. Right now, this pocket isn't doing anything for the Ukrainians other than wasting manpower. There was a massive encirclement in this area of Ukrainian troops. We actually saw a execution video today of Ukrainians surrendering. Then the Russians just executed, like, it looked like 10 to 15 POWs, which obviously horrible, terrible. The explanation that I've seen predominantly is that there is a CTO going on. So everybody in the Kursk region is basically an enemy terrorist combatant, and they are dealt with as such. I do believe this is why the Ukrainians are trying to pay so much extra for people to go into Kursk, is because basically there is no quarter being given when surrender does happen. And honestly, it's horrible. But when the Ukrainians went into Kursk, they particularly went aggressive against the civilians in the region and killed a lot of civilians. So I think there's a lot of retribution being paid right now. And I don't support it, but it's happening on both sides. So at this point, I'm done complaining about war crimes and stuff like that. Nobody cares, and everybody seems to ignore it. So whatever. Thoughts on a conventionally armed RS-26 ICBM strike on Autumn Street to restore deterrence that was going... Yeah, no, that, again, doesn't make any sense. Why strike that? You know what they should strike? They should just cut off all electricity coming in from Europe, and they should hit the substations going into the nuclear power plants. They should also blow that dam up atop of Kiev and the dam in Kremenchuk. I think that they should do both of those things and make the Ukrainians have an incredibly difficult time domestically and end the war in the way that is most efficient for the Russians without, costing thousands of civilian lives and stuff like that. All of this talk about immediate strikes, it's the same. It feels like a grift to me. It feels like the same goddamn people every single time something like this happens come on and say the same nuke bullshit. They say the same. They're hyping it up. They come in. It's like engagement farming almost. They do it with Israel. It's like the same people doing it everywhere as well. So no, I don't think that is proper. I don't think it makes any sense. The Russians why not just use 50 Iskanders instead of, I don't know, one big expensive ICBM. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't create deterrence. There is no deterrence. The United States knows exactly what Russia can do. Russia knows exactly what the United States can do. They're pushing buttons, they're pushing the edge in the gray zone and never actually crossing the line with anything that they do both ways. It's an agreement, and you're not going to see some massive nuclear war. I have a lot of thoughts about what's going on in Ukraine post-election and everything like that. So it's there's a lot going on. Okay. Would Ukraine / NATO strike a Russian NPP? Thanks as always. Very possible. I think they were going for the NPP in the Kursk region here. I don't know. I don't know what they're planning on doing. But here's the thing, is that even if they were to strike an NPP, the only thing they can do is de-energize it from the outside. The good thing about nuclear power plants is they're literally designed to survive a nuclear blast. So, not still function and operate, but not have their fissionable material being ejected into the stratosphere because of a nuclear blast. So, ATACMS and Storm Shadows are not going to do any significant damage that's going to cause a nuclear event of any kind. And the response to that would be horrific. So, just internationally, just diplomatically, the response to striking a nuclear power plant is pretty terrible. So that doesn't make any sense to me either, and I don't think you have anything to worry about on that front. I think if they had the ability to go capture one, which would be very dangerous, they would. But striking, it doesn't make any sense. Okay. Let me actually get into the updates now. It has been 22 minutes and I haven't even gotten to an update. So, all right, here in the Kursk region, we have a small Russian advance through this forested area. Still a ton of fighting happening inside of the city. We have no clear geolocations inside of this industrial area, but lots and lots of fighting happening here. So the Ukrainians are trapped. They are still fighting. They are trying to push the Russians back, but the Russians are holding their positions. That is the Kursk salient. This should be closed. I still can't believe the Ukrainians are here. It is one of the worst pockets I've seen since maybe Kharkov or the collapse of Avdiivka. But yeah, not Kharkov, sorry, Ugledar. Okay. Moving down to nothing in the Pokrovsk section. Oh, we have a small Russian advance, actually kind of a major Russian advance here in Toretsk. They have advanced through several blocks here. And what this advance is going to do is it's going to threaten the overall supply situation into this industrial zone. So likely we're probably going to see Toretsk being captured here in the next couple of weeks. One more big Russian breakthrough, say into this industrial area, onto this Terekon, further deeper into Toretsk itself, or over here through this industrial area, will likely spell the end for this city that the Ukrainians are trying to hold. Okay, over to just north of Kharkov here, Russian forces have advanced in capturing almost all, likely capturing all of Sontsivka, or putting most of it into the gray zone. You know, we don't have geolocations over here, but likely the Ukrainians aren't holding positions here. This advance is vitally important because the Russians are now 2 miles, so 4 kilometers, 3.2 kilometers away from completely closing this pocket. So expect the entire northern Korkove Reservoir area to be captured by the Russians in short order. And we can see the Russians continue moving along the reservoir itself, entering into Bretsky from the Nova Ilyanka area, and just, again, putting a lot of pressure on this northern area of the salient, which will eventually lead the Russians directly behind Kharkov, cutting off supply and ending the battle for the city if it's not pushed from the east before then. Does Trump turn off the shut off the taps to Ukraine? Potentially. However, if he does that, he's going to be blamed for the loss. Biden is going to be seen as doing everything he possibly could before he got out of office, greenlighting weapon or missile strikes, greenlighting, landmines, anti-personnel mines, which is something he's basically giving everything that he possibly can before they leave office. One, to escalate, probably to prevent negotiations. And then in the event that Trump does somehow end the conflict by cutting off supply or whatever, he will be totally blamed for Ukraine's failure, the Ukraine project failure. So it's a catch-22 sort of deal. All right, here in Kharkov itself, Russian forces have made a significant advance, capturing these grain silo area over here, and a good chunk of the city. The Russians now control about 40% of the city, likely more. And there are reports that the Ukrainians are retreating from the center of the city and that they have already abandoned the hospital here to move back into the industrial area. So the front line is sort of leveling out now. But as you can see, there are problems way to the west of Kharkov. So Kharkov is now the bottom of a salient, much like Ugledar was at one point. Moving down into this salient, which is just an absolute nightmare for the Ukrainians. I don't know how many troops they actually have in this area anymore, but the Russians are not advancing overly quickly in this area, so I would assume that there's still some decent fighting going on for these villages here. But just to the south, just north of Ilyanka, Russian forces have advanced. They are quickly approaching this fortification here. Once this fortification falls, most of the pocket should collapse up to these fortifications. So the Russians have advanced out of Dezhne here, or Dalne. I think that's how you say it. Which is just another quick applying pressure to these fortifications, thus closing the salient a little bit faster. Don't know why the Ukrainians are still here, but they are. So, I think that they're trying to basically get out of Kharkov before they let this pocket fall, and then the entire southern flank collapses, and we have much bigger issues for the AFU in this area. All right, now getting over to the meat and potatoes of today's update. As I have been telling you guys for quite some time, the Russians are now beginning their offensive in the Zaporizhzhia region. The muddy season is coming to an end. The ground is hardening, and there has not been a ton of rain in Ukraine. So this muddy season has come to a very quick end. It was never really terrible to begin with. And now we can see that the Russians have begun advancing on the first crossroad village of Velika Novoselka with some serious intensity, advancing out of Novodonetsk here into these fields, which are fortified by the Ukrainians, and advancing in the direction of Velika Novoselka. This is sort of just a frontline leveling more than anything else. But there is a concerted Russian advance now along the highway towards Velika Novoselka. Up here to the north, Russian forces have advanced out of Yasna Polana in the direction of Yozdolne. And this is the more important advance of the two, because this advance is going to threaten the main line of logistics into Velika Novoselka from the north, its connection to Andrivka, to Pokrovsk, basically to all of Ukraine, will be cut, And if the Russians can advance out of Rivnepol up here to cut this line of communication, Velika Novosilka will be entirely without supply. It will fall, and the Russians will be able to bloom out of here just as they did with Ugledar. You are going to see the same thing with Holyai Polye. They are going to bloom out of here just like they did with Ugledar. And Orehiv, the same thing will come where they bloom out of there in that direction. So those are your updates today. A little bit slower movement, but I believe that the Russian offensive in Zaporizhzhia and southern Donetsk for these three areas has started. So expect a lot of fighting in that region very soon. All right, guys, I am done with my updates. We can talk about a lot of different things. If you guys have some questions, go ahead. I'll be looking over at the chat now, so I'll be answering some more questions. But I talked about the ATACMS and the Storm Shadow. I don't think that anything is really going to change. Logically, just looking at it, I don't see why anything needs to change. I think cooler heads prevail here. I don't think it makes Putin look weak. I actually think this makes Biden look rather weak. The timing of this is very poor. Obviously, it's too late for it to make any significant difference. The munitions that the Ukrainians have mean that this is not going to do significant damage inside of Russia. And it comes when it comes when it's very safe. It's very safe for him right now, right? He doesn't have to worry about the election. The election's over. They lost. All he has to do is basically prevent either it would have been Kamala or Trump from pulling out of Ukraine, or settling it in a way that didn't look the best for the Democrats. So yeah, it just looks like desperation, looks like weakness, looks like the final things that they can try to do to I don't know, escalate or just doom Ukraine. It just looks like they're dooming Ukraine. Honestly, it's what it looks like. It looks like they're finally crossing that red line with nothing substantial enough to actually break that red line. They're just putting their foot over it and then pulling it back, and then putting their foot over it and pulling it back, and saying, look at what we're doing. Please react to us. Give us a reason. That's what it seems like to me. I might be wrong. I don't know. But I'm going to stick with my gut and say that we probably won't see the insane reaction from Russia that everybody always expects from them, always, because they're winning. I don't know how many times I have to describe this to everybody, but when you're winning, you don't want the equation to change. You want it to stay the same. Do you agree that the Battle of Bakhmut will be remembered as the most critical moment of the war? Yes, I've said it the entire time. Bakhmut was the absolute pinnacle of Ukrainian strength. They were very built up for the 2023 counteroffensive. They wasted some of that on Bakhmut. And then they came back to Bakhmut after they lost it and did a counteroffensive there, gained some territory back, and then ended up losing it. So yes, Bakhmut is really I would say the Stalingrad of the war, where it was very clear after that point going into the 2023 counteroffensive that the Ukrainians were weak, that the Russians were strong, and that they were never going to be able to reach that same point that they were before Bakhmut and through Bakhmut. Just checking. All right. Let's see. The attrition weakened the summer offensive. Yes, it absolutely did. Our S-26 ICBMs would just be a 10 times bigger, 11 times faster, 14 times longer range Iskander. Better than Kinshal because VSS takeoffs are heavily monitored. Not really better, right? Because it's gonna be on every single nation's early warning radar that a Russian intercontinental ballistic missile has just been fired. The reason why you probably don't do this is because the only real reason you would fire this is for nuclear reasons. Firing a conventional version of this it's just a waste of money, in my opinion. yes, they're faster, but you could fire 40 Iskanders that are going to penetrate and do just as much damage. So I don't see the point in this other than, a pissing contest, a dick measuring contest. And I don't see the point in that. It's like, I've been saying this on Twitter a lot. It's like people are like iPad kids and they're like emotional teenagers where they have to flex and it's a war. You don't have to prove anything. You just have to win. That's all. So that's my position. You don't have to show how big your stick is. Everybody knows. It's not a mystery. Rumor has it the ATACMS are a distraction for Ukrainian retreat from Kursk, but I agree Ukraine will fire all or most missiles and nothing will change. Yeah, I don't think it's really a retreat from Kursk. I think that they could pull out of Kursk and it's going to look bad whether they have the missiles or not. I think that what this is just the final basically putting the stamp on the death certificate for Ukraine. This forces Russia into a position where they cannot negotiate at all. You can't, right? It has been very clearly demonstrated that the West wants absolutely no negotiations. This forces Russia's hand. I think that this is really what it's about. I think it's supposed to do as much damage to Russia as they can possibly do before this whole thing collapses. And I do think it's collapsing. So, I don't know if it has anything to do with Kursk necessarily, but yeah. Thanks for the late stream, buddy. Thanks for being here, Tyler. I'm glad you were able to make it. Thank you so much for your donation, brother. You are one of my best viewers, I would say. Undoubtedly my best viewer. And I'm sorry to the other people who think they're my best viewers, but Tyler... not because of the money. Tyler could stop donating tomorrow and he would still be one of my best viewers. He has been here literally since like day one. Tyler is one of the OG boys in here, and he is a Canadian boy as well. So he's got a special little place in my heart. No diddy, Tyler, no diddy. All right, here we go. Thank you so much, Tyler. I appreciate you being in here, brother. Yo, Scott, for the record, 2 inquiries, please. 1, who is the greatest warmonger of all time? Genghis Khan is pretty good. Who is the greatest warmonger of all time? What do you mean by greatest? Like most prolific? Prolific? Oh, so prolific? Or the most successful? Or the loudest? Because Lindsey Graham is a great warmonger. He's fantastic, right? He'll sit there and warmonger all day, but he's not very good at it. He hasn't achieved a lot with his warmongering, and everybody knows he's a warmonger and rolls their eyes. Probably Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney killed that game, man. There's probably some African warlord somewhere who is probably pretty good at mongering, but outside of that, I think the Cheney family's got it under wraps. They started the global war on terror, which was like 20 years and a lot of U.S. taxpayer money and U.S. lives just wasted and Middle Eastern lives demolished. But I guess you could also say that's like the guy who assassinated Archduke Ferdinand was probably the greatest warmonger of all time. This is a great question, my guy. This is a fantastic question to ask. All right. And then, you give me options. I'm sorry. I was just going off of my brain here. Biden, George W. That would be Dick Cheney. Graham, there we go. He's like the most bitchy one. By the way, I had a gay friend of mine who lives in Denver, basically, or not Denver. They used to live in Denver. Now they live somewhere else. I don't know. They basically told me that word on the street is Lindsey Graham loves that lifestyle and is very secretive about it and will pay a ton of money to keep it under wraps. So I don't know. That's just hearsay, but it's kind of goofy. And then what was the last one? Question 2: who's Biden's daddy? I think the Biden administration is actually pretty powerful. The Biden family is pretty powerful for a long time. I don't really know who exactly that would be. Probably a corporation or something like that. But I'm not sure. Who's Biden's daddy? Biden Sr. RS-26 Ruzbin missile hits in 2 days. It has to just go around a couple times. All right, guys. Let's see. Lindsey Graham should be a Ukrainian Israeli politician. He should just be the ambassador to Israel. He's thugging for them 24/7. It's quite impressive. Finally can watch you live again. Awesome. Thank you for being here, man. I'm glad you're in here, Wintermute. What would your worst case scenario that could happen in the next few months? And what would be the likelihood? Oh, wow. Okay. When you say worst case scenario, do you mean, nuclear war would be pretty bad. So if for some reason this was to escalate into nuclear war, that would be a no-go. My worst case scenario for the Ukrainians is basically exactly what's happening right now. There's a little sigh of relief that Zelensky seems totally against the mobilization of 18 to 25-year-olds. So it looks like there's some preservation there for the Ukrainian nation. But the worst case scenario for me would be an extremely long, protracted war where the U.S. and Europe end up being able to provide enough support, and the Ukrainians are able to mobilize enough men to keep this thing going for like another year and a half. And basically, the entire Ukrainian state is just eroded from the inside. Eroded. Bruce Almighty. Sorry if anybody didn't get that. The entire Ukrainian state is just eroded from the inside, and it's just this awful decayed garbage that Europe, if it exists, Europe will have to pay into it for like the next multiple decades until they get out from under that. And I think that would be the worst case scenario for Europe and for Ukraine. I think that the worst case scenario for Russia is that they are forced to use a tactical nuclear weapon when they don't want to. I think that would be the worst look for Russia. I think that would pull the world into a completely new era. And I think that it would just not work out for the Russians at all. So I think that would be the worst case scenario for the Russians right now, barring some massive economic collapse. I'm that, which could just be right around the corner, but I don't see that happening. So, and the percentage on that, I would say the percentage for the Ukrainian one is very high. I really hope this thing kind of crumbles and comes to an end quickly, so more Ukrainian lives are saved. But I would say that that's probably at a 50% likelihood right now. And the Russian one using a tactical nuke, I think it's very low. I think you have very rational people in power, but you have very desperate people on the other side. So I would say that one's at like 5% a chance of that happening. And then worst case scenario for the U.S. is somehow Russia has a massive victory, basically captures all of Ukraine, settles the issue with Transnistria, just a complete Russian sweep of this thing after we've given them close to $200 billion, degraded Europe's militaries, degraded Europe's economies, deindustrialized Germany through Nord Stream and stuff like that. That would be the worst case scenario. If U.S. hegemony is severely impacted by a massive loss in Ukraine, and I would say that's like at 10%. I don't think that the Russians are going to be able to achieve all that success. I don't think they really want to. And I don't think the U.S. position is so weak that they won't be able to, come out okay from the other end. Let's see. I'm glad you guys are in here tonight. We're having a great live stream. I'm loving these questions too. They're fantastic. Uh, what is this? Worst case, Iran bombs Tel Aviv. Yeah, that would be bad. That would be bad because then Iran would catch. I mean, if it was like a serious escalation in the Middle East, then Iran's catching a nuke, and then the whole Middle East is just going to erupt, and it's going to be bad. What do you say to people who are convinced that DPRK troops are actually in Ukraine in great numbers? Some who I thought were realists are saying it. So again, you're talking about an information space that is just completely screwed right now. The United States is putting out so much fake information and polluting and just diluting the entire information space that you can't really know what's going on. So you have the people who believe the United States when Lloyd Austin or somebody comes out and says that there are X number of North Koreans and we have this intel and that's why we're giving Ukraine permission. Everybody's like, oh wow, that must be it. That must be because they haven't given permission this entire time. And then they completely ignorantly ignore the fact that this sort of decision takes weeks. They started ramping up all this North Korean nonsense weeks ago, leading up to the election. And then immediately after the election, what do you have? Biden's green lighting all of this different stuff. Strikes start happening. So they're going to say, oh, well, this must be proof that there's Ukrainians, even though we have not seen a single shred of evidence and there's been no claims, this, that, or the other. It could be happening. There could be North Korean troops in the Kursk region fighting. I have yet to see any evidence. I don't see why it happened. I've been saying the entire time that it makes no logical sense to change the equation. Again, just like Russia responding ridiculously to this red line being crossed, right? If they invited North Korean troops, that gives the West exactly the excuse that I was talking about, that we're seeing now. Just listen to me, guys. All you have to do is just connect the dots. They're right in front of you, right? It's so simple. Oh, scary North Koreans. It's gonna change the equation. The Ukrainians are gonna start losing. What are we gonna do? Oh, well, let's just give them the ability to strike with Western weapons, even though that's exactly what we were going to do. And guess what? Trump didn't make a big deal about it. He basically said, yeah, that's exactly what I would have done. Because U.S. foreign policy doesn't change with presidents, people. So that's yeah. They're just delusional, in my opinion. But again, we don't have enough facts. So for me to say that they're delusional could be a lie, and I could just be proven wrong tomorrow morning when the Ukrainians are pulling North Korean POWs out of Kursk region, and it's all hoopla. I'll believe it when I see it. I haven't seen a shred of evidence, and until I see evidence, I'm not going to make any claims. David Rockefeller met with Saddam about leaving the U.S. banking, and then they were wiped out shortly after. Yeah, but also Bibi was talking about all of this in 1996. So, I mean, this has been the war on terror was something that was planned and it was orchestrated. And yeah, I'm sure that it had something to do with all of, money. It always does. It's a mess. We don't even need to connect the dots. It doesn't need to be David Rockefeller. It doesn't need to be Dick Cheney this, or it happened. We know it happened, and we know who's responsible. We know who pushed it. It is what it is. It was a fraudulent war, no matter who talked to who. What would good optics, quote unquote, be in your view for Russia to maintain face in response to the long-range missile escalation? Hit the nuclear power plants. I mean, not directly, don't cause a nuclear event, but strike all of the substations around the nuclear power plants, cut off electricity coming in from Europe, turn the lights off in Ukraine. That is the perfect response to this. It sends a very clear message. It does actual damage, and it does not cross a line in return. It is the perfect route. You have every excuse now. Do it. Do it. And show how bad the problems can really get for Ukraine if they keep doing this stuff and keep striking inside of Russia. Just do it. I think they should have done it a long time ago, but they're trying. Russia is desperately trying to stay in a position where they can reopen trade with Europe. That it's a huge market, and they don't want to lose it. And Germany needs them. So I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's too far gone. But it is the future of their nation, so they're going to try everything they can to maintain it. Will ATACMS and Storm Shadow change the course of the war given Ukraine? Absolutely not. They didn't when they were first delivered. Abrams didn't change anything. HIMARS didn't change anything. None of this changes anything. It's simple. It's simple math, guys. There are X amount of Ukrainians. There are X amount of Russians. The war is existential for Russia. They are not going to stop. So it's going to either go until its conclusion or it's going to be settled, and the Russians are not going to lose. So no, these missiles do not change anything. The only way these missiles and the ability to use them in Russia changes anything is if Russia responds inappropriately, not necessarily inappropriately, in my opinion, to this event. If they give the West an excuse, that would be the best way that they could shoot themselves in the foot. All right, guys. Dope. Oh, okay. But Scott, the railroads in Ukraine are electric powered. How does Zelensky supply the coke from the West? Yeah, I don't know. I actually don't know if he's doing drugs anymore. It seemed like he was doing a lot of drugs, and now it seems like he's kind of sad. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, Ukrainian rail infrastructure is run off of electricity. So you shut off the electricity, you hamper military logistics. I fully agree. Oh, here we go. Question: what are your favorite sports to play and watch? So for me, huge one was football and soccer. I played soccer like at a national level for 14 or 13, 12 years, something like that, from when I could start until I was done with high school. So I loved playing soccer. I was very good at it. I then went over and was a kicker and a tight end for the football team. I very much enjoyed that. I have a good stature, so it was fun to play football, especially here where I live. Everybody's kind of short. I was a monster out there. And then let me think. In terms of watching, I love watching college basketball. I love watching NFL football. I like watching F1, and I think that's kind of it. It's kind of where I love to play soccer. Football. Workout sessions, videos featuring talking gym. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that content would even be good. I don't know. I could make it. The gym I go to is pretty quiet, but maybe I'll start a second channel and like my second Telegram channel, and it'll just be my side quest stuff. If all are hitting 2 days, or did you miss it? No, I responded to it. You said, yeah, it was this one, right? Right here. Wait, where is it? I did see it. Yeah, right here. I said the missile hits in 2 days, and I said, yeah, because it has to go around the world like 3 or 4 times, so it just takes its time. But I think you meant it like it hits in 2 days. Is this a prediction, or are you saying it because it's like on a delay? Wasn't Ukraine striking Crimea with storm shadows? Yes, but Crimea is gray. It's a gray area, so it is Russia technically, but the world doesn't recognize it as Russia. The world recognizes Kursk as Russia, so that's sort of the difference. Scott, it followed that one. Oh, Oh, this one. Yeah, I did miss this one. Is it true that Putin indicated that he would agree to a ceasefire if Trump conducts peace talks between Russia and Ukraine? Yeah, I think that the Russians are very open to peace negotiations. So, I mean, peace negotiations. What are peace negotiations? Because the Russian position, the Ukrainian position, the European position, and the American position are all different. So I think that the Russians would be open to it. I think Trump would like the conflict to end. I don't think it serves him or his administration at all. However, I don't think that it's possible to find any common ground between the four sides that need to negotiate on this topic. So no, I don't. I don't think that it is true, but I don't think that it's ever a possibility. All right. Thank you. No, thank you, man. I appreciate it. No ceasefire. Well, see, this is exactly what I was talking about. So the ceasefire is part of the Russian position. The Russian position is there can't be a ceasefire. It has to be a lasting resolution. It can't be Minsk 1. It can't be Minsk 2. So, yeah. The Russians are preparing them now. Well, they're already prepared because it's part of Russia's nuclear triad response. But no, I mean, they're not going to go to Ukraine. It's a waste. That would be such a waste of that missile. Makes no sense. Yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, it's unfortunate. I wish it wasn't like that. If Russia does not respond, then the next step will be the UK Air Force launch. No. No, that is a completely different an attack on Russia by a NATO aircraft and stuff. That is completely different, guys. There are so many different levels to this escalation. These missiles can only go about 200 kilometers deep into Russia from where they can be launched from. So it's really it's very, like I said, it's just like putting your toe over the line and then pulling it back, and then putting your toe over the line and pulling it back. And then you're dealing with a situation where if the Russians smack Ukraine for putting their toe over that line, the repercussions are going to be so much more than what that toe is even doing. And that toe is not going to be there forever because they're going to run out of missiles. So it's every action has an equal and opposite reaction, and you have to be very careful about how you proceed here if you're the Russians. Question: any updates with Hezbollah versus Israel? No, the Israelis are still taking casualties in southern Lebanon. They said that they were going to get out, but they're not. I don't know. And there's rumors that Netanyahu is going to annex the West Bank in a couple of weeks. So who knows, man? It's a mess. It's kind of slowed down a little bit, though, at least the rhetoric and stuff for now. I think the Israelis are waiting for the Trump administration to get into office. One, how does Russia capture the Syrbiansky forestry? Just they have to push through it. I think that they're going to have to, here, I can show you. They're going to have to come down through Toretsk here and into Yampil. And then once they get down through this area, see, these are the roads that keep this area supply the forest supplied right here. So once they get in here and cut this, then they won't be able to keep this supplied as well. And once that happens, then you'll see the forestry fall. It's just a hard area to move through for both sides. Ooh, ceasefire so they can rearm again. Exactly. That's what the Russians don't want to do. Due to the destruction of the Korkove Dam, does that cause the reservoir to empty to the point where men can cross it like at the dip? I honestly don't know. I've only seen very limited views of what the actual water situation is around the area. So I can't answer that question truthfully or honestly, but I would imagine that the reservoir will be extremely shallow, if not empty, if I had to guess. Could Russia give the Mexican drug cartel some suitcase nukes? Oh, you guys are lunatics, dude. You guys are lunatics. Nuclear proliferation is not what anybody wants. That's very, very bad. Especially giving random people nukes is not, because then you're just going to, the odds are you're going to have them get used on yourself eventually. No. What I could see happening is the Russians giving Iran a nuke. That would be an asymmetrical move that would change the power balance in the Middle East. And I think probably for the better, where it would put Israel back in its place. And if it's sponsored by the Russians, I think that that's going to be much different than Iran achieving a nuke itself with its own nuclear program. But that's a wild thing to do. That would be a wild, wild thing to do. I don't see that happening ever either. Let's see. Any more questions here, boys? Do you think that Maryino, judging by the footage, that anything significant value was hit? Also, I don't know. It looks like the area where a command post could be, but it doesn't seem to me that there was a mass casualty event, and I haven't really heard anything about it. Usually there's some Russian dooming here and there about stuff like this. It's been rather quiet. So to me, this kind of just looks like we don't really know what to shoot these at. So we're just going to shoot them at this because we see some Russian troops coming in and out. And that's the best that we can do. Also, what indicates the presence of a bunker in there? Nothing indicates it. If you go and look at the actual location, it does have some decently like reinforced buildings. I won't say like actual. Wait, where is it? Oh, right here. So if you come in here and look where the missiles landed, I don't know. I don't see a bunker in here. I mean, there could be something in these buildings. I don't know. I think these are just like staffing buildings for this facility here, but I'm not sure. I don't know. There could be something in one of these. You know, the Russians can set up command posts anywhere. I just think that the Ukrainians saw some activity here and fired missiles in this general area. Because this is the operation they're trying to support. Why sending anti-tank or anti-personnel mines to Ukraine? Because they slow down Russian advance, and because there are no negative repercussions for the current administration in doing so. The reason why they didn't do it before now is because of the repercussions. What position did you play? I guess goalkeeper. No, I played midfield for a long time. I was very, very good in midfield. And then I grew between my freshman and sophomore year. I went from like 5'10" to 6'3" when I'm 6'4" now, but I was like 6'3" in high school. And I just got moved back into defense because I could just bully everybody. I would literally I turned into a goon on my club team because I would just go out there and beat people up, and I would get yellow cards all the time. And that was like my job. It was kind of fun. I enjoyed it. Let's see. AMK reports. No way. No way did they really do that, bro. There's no way. Are you fucking kidding me? After I just said all that shit? Oh, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Why? Why do this? Why waste the missile just to send a message? Oh my god. Oh god. Also, of course it happens in the middle of my live stream, bro. Of course. No, they're saying kinjals were used. Whatever. We'll see. It doesn't look like I don't see him saying that R-26s have been launched. Just we'll see. We'll see. We'll see. I'm not saying anything. Let's see. High speed Dnipro. Yeah, these. All I'm seeing is kinjals so far, but you could definitely be right. I don't know. Great. Live stream tomorrow, guys. Tune in. Let's see. That's wild. Imagine the escalation of Mexican cartels acting like a proxy with Kinjal missiles. Yeah, that dude. Imagine the gusto they would have if they got suitcase nukes. Restore Russia's 1914 borders. Russia will give zircons to. No, they won't. But I don't know. I don't know what you guys are thinking. You know that you have to have infrastructure for this. You can't just give intercontinental ballistic missiles to people. It's not really how it works. Uh, why do you think they're lying? I don't think they're lying. I think that there has been a lot of back and forth in this area. You're talking about Seversk, right? I think that there's been a ton of fighting in this area where they have pushed into this Terracon and then been pushed out because it's just not a advantageous position to sit in. Same with Hyrivka and up in here to Shabyanka. This is on the low ground, so it's easy to advance up through here, but holding this is an absolute nightmare. The key is these positions right here. If the Russians are able to capture these positions in the forest, then this entire pocket basically closes up to Seversk. So that's the goal right now. But the Ukrainians are holding this because it's a very advantageous position to defend from. What is an RS-26? That's an intercontinental ballistic missile. It's just a massive nuclear missile. But it's not. But in this instance, they're saying it's not. It wouldn't be nuclear capable. It'd be a conventional warhead. So do I get an apology? Yeah, bro. If it actually is this, you get a 100% apology. I'm sorry, Ameriborn. That makes no sense to me. That would be such a inconsequential way of flexing your power and showing that you can use a weapon. I see that as pointless, and we'll see what happens. But yes, you do get an apology if it's absolutely true. Makes no sense to me. It makes no goddamn sense. But hey, maybe they just want to show it off that they can use it. I don't know. American cartels rolling into the U.S. with BMPs and tanks. Bro, yeah, we got a problem down there. I wonder if Trump's going to go after him. That would be some interesting footage to see. All right, guys, that's where I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you so much. Please go check out my Patreon. There are 2 new videos up there, so just go sign up as a free member and watch those if you're looking for more content. One is with the bros, Clown and Zag, and one is with AMK Mapping, who we just talked about. Go also follow AMK Mapping. He does a good job covering these strikes. I appreciate you all so much being in here. I love doing these late streams. I might add a second one because I really do enjoy them so much. But, take care. Have a great week. Live it up because you don't know how much time we got left. Nuclear war could be right around the corner, boys. Who we killing first? We gotta eat. We gotta start eating people for food. I saw a meme and it was before I go, it was that scene from The Walking Dead where Negan is just beating that big redheaded guy's skull in with the bat, and it was my family watching me kill the first person we encounter in the apocalypse, and that is absolutely me, dude. Just schmack, and it's just like 2 days into COVID. All right, guys. Take care. I love you all. Be safe, and I will see you on the next one. Goodbye.